Hey everyone, Mr. MC here, back with another guide, this time for round 3 of the 2024 Manufacturers Cup exhibition season, and we're at Road Atlanta with the Group 3 cars. So let's take a quick look at the race details. Where for GT1 League, it is a 28 lap race. For GT2 and 3, it is a 20 lap race. You do have to use the racing soft and medium tires so you don't get a big penalty towards the end of the race. Fuel is a ×1, so fuel is not an issue, but tire wear is a ×3, and tire wear will be an issue, especially when you're on the racing soft tires. So let's go on over to the lap guide, where I have the brake balance at +2 or 2 clicks towards the rear of the car, and you're gonna want to be a bit careful with turn number 1 coming up because it's really easy to mess this up. So what I'm using for my first braking point is the end of the grass that is on the left. So you're going to be at full braking power for a very brief moment because you have to get ready to turn in shortly after you start to brake. So you brake hard for a short moment, ease off of the brakes, and then turn in. Going under 4th gear and quickly get back on the throttle. Just try and make sure you don't touch the grass on the left. As you go up the hill, that's where you start to lift off of throttle, but stay towards the left. And you want to look for the curb on the left, as you want to brake right when it starts. You're going to be at full braking power for a very brief moment as well, turning in when the curb on the left ends, and go down to 30 gear. Be very careful getting back on the throttle, as it's really easy for the car to lose control over here. Just do a little courtesy lift, bring yourself towards the left, so you can try to go to the S's flat out. If needed, you can do a courtesy lift so you don't touch the grass. Then brake when the curb on the right starts. So you're going to brake hard for a short moment, turn in when the curb on the right ends, and make your way down to 3rd gear. You will need to do a little bit of trail braking, just easing off of the brakes as you're turning in, just being really gentle getting back on the throttle. Then bring yourself towards the left. I'm using the start of the tarmac on the right as my braking point or my reference point. So right as I start to pass it, that's when I start to brake, braking hard for a short moment, going on to 3rd gear, and carefully get back on the throttle. Now just after I complete that turn, that's where I start to brake, and I will go down to 1st gear, and that is to get a bit more rotation, but I do want to exit on 2nd gear and just carefully get back on the throttle. Try to get the car pointing towards the back straight as quickly as you can, and then get back on the throttle. If you do it right, and as you saw with my Ghost, I was able to get a pretty good exit and get past my Ghost. Then bring yourself towards the right. Your final braking point is just before you reach the 200 feet board. So you want to brake as much as you can in a straight line. Go down to 2nd gear, and you can use the curves. They're still within track limits. You're just trying to set yourself up for the exit of the chicane. Go up to 3rd gear and nice and careful back on the throttle, and go ahead and finish your lap going through the final corner flat out. Now before going over to the strategies, please be careful when you're entering the pit stop at Road Atlanta, because the pit entry is pretty notorious. If you're not careful, you're going to get a 3-second penalty, because the solid pit line is just as you start going down the hill. So just before you go under the Fox Factory Bridge, just bring yourself towards the right, slow yourself down, because again, just as you start going down the hill, the dash line on the left turns solid, and you don't want to cross that line. And for the love that is all holy, please slow down for the pit entry, because you actually have to slow down for this right turn. If you don't slow down, that's going to happen. You're going to look like an idiot, and you're going to have a very bad day. Alright, so for GT2 and 3 people, you are doing 20 laps at Road Atlanta with fuel at ×1, so fuel is not an issue. Tire wear is a ×3, and believe it or not, tire wear is an issue, especially with the racing soft tires. And you do have to use the racing soft and medium tires for this race. Now, I need to tell you guys something. you have to be really damn careful with how you're driving your car on the racing soft tires, because if you start to thrash your car around, your tires are not going to last that long, and I found that out the very hard way. So in the footage that you're seeing, I was driving a bit rubbish, and my racing soft tires only lasted 8 laps. That is not a lot of laps. Your goal is to try to make your racing soft tires last at least 10 laps. Best case scenario, you can do 12 laps. I know in another run that I'll show in the GT1 League section, I was able to make my racing soft tires last 11 laps. But in these runs, I was doing a pretty poor job managing my tires, and I was only able to get 8 laps before I had to go on over to the pit stop. So yes, this is a tire saving race. If you remember the GR Super Cup, I think this was in 2019, where tire saving was the name of the game. Well, those days are back, and I hope you enjoy them, because yeah, you have to tire save in this race. Now we're gonna go ahead and skip on over towards the start of lap number 5. This was around the time where I started to feel the tower effects, and again, this was because I was driving pretty poorly. You're gonna see a bit of that right now. Just sliding the car into turn number 1. And with the tower at ×3, I basically just did that 3 times with the racing soft tires. So yeah, my tires are definitely not going to be too happy about that. One thing I do want to note, at least in the Porsche, the front left tire is the one that's wearing out a bit faster compared to the other tires. So you want to be careful with your turning inputs, because if you try to turn way too much, you're just going to have the tires scream at you, and you're just going to start to understeer a bit, and that's going to wear out your tires even faster. So you have to pay close attention to how you're driving to make sure that you can make your tires last as long as possible. And again, the goal is going to be 10 laps on the racing soft tires. If you can do 11 laps, awesome. If you can do 12 laps, then you're pretty darn good at tire saving. But yeah, 12 laps is going to be a tall order, so 10 or 11 laps, that's going to be your main goal. So we're going to go ahead and skip on over towards lap number 7, end of lap number 7. You can see that, oh my goodness, yeah, that tire is not looking too good. I was driving around, I was driving like crap, to be honest. And because of that, being too harsh through the corners, basically just plowing through the corners and turning in too much, using more steering input than I need to, that pretty much just destroyed my front left tire. And yeah, because of that, I feel like I have to pit at this point. And yeah, this was a bit of a harsh wake up call, because that's where I realized, oof, I might not be so good at tire saving. So if you're like me, you're only getting 8 or 9 laps out of the racing soft tires, then it is a bit of work that is going to need to be done on your end to try and make those tires last a little bit longer. We want to try to drive as smoothly as possible, as precise as possible. Try to reduce the amount of sliding that's happening throughout the corners. That way you can try to make your tires last a bit longer. Now we're going to go ahead and just try to carefully enter the pit stop. There you go, slowing down so I don't cross the solid yellow line. I'm going to go nice and careful, brake for this turn, and enter the pit stop. So we just completed our racing soft stints, so we're going to go ahead and switch on over to the racing medium tires, because we have to use both the racing soft and medium tires so we don't get bonked with a massive time penalty after the race ends. Now, in terms of pit loss, your pit loss, which is just for a tire change, is around 25 seconds, which is a bit longer than I expected, but yeah, 25 seconds is going to be the pit loss. So if you're already thinking about doing a 2-stop, no, do not do a 2-stop. It's not worth it. If it's not viable in GT1 League, then it's definitely not viable in the GT2 and 3 League. So you're just doing a 1-stop. And yeah, that pretty much applies for all GT leagues. Now, in terms of time gap for the racing medium tires, it should typically be a little under 1 second. I think there was points where I was around 6 to 8 tenths of a second slower on the racing medium tires compared to the racing soft tires. And if you drive decently, you shouldn't have problems with the tire wear on the racing medium tires. But if you're like me and you start driving it like, well, I'm going to say crap, then you're not going to have the best time, and you will start to feel that tire wear effect when you're trying not to. So yeah, this is basically a tire saving race. If you have to tire save in GT2 and 3, you definitely have to tire save in GT1, especially when you're doing longer stints over there. But yeah, so 20 lap race, your goal is to try to get at least 10 laps out of the racing soft tires, and you definitely have to tire save. And I know I forgot to mention this towards the start of the race. If you're starting towards the front, you can start under racing soft tires to try to get away from everyone else. But if you're starting towards the middle or the back, you can start under racing medium tires to try to get the slower tire compound out of the way. But after this, I'm not gonna lie, kind of a poor run, I was able to get a 26 minutes and 37 second run, and that is with a one stop, doing 8 laps on the soft tires and 12 laps on the racing medium tires. Again, try to do at least a 10-10 strategy. If you can do 11 laps on the racing soft tires, then that's even better. But yeah, tire saving is the name of the game here. Alright, let's go on over to the GT1 League shenanigans, where it is a 28 lap race, and just as in GT2 and 3 leagues, fields are ×1, tire wear ×3, and you have to use the racing soft and medium tires in this race. So, as I was saying in the GT2 and 3 section, for you guys in GT1, you're still doing a one stop. Do not think about doing a two stop, because the pit loss is around 25 seconds, which is longer than I thought. It's 25 seconds, and you're not going to be able to make up enough time to make it viable. So yeah, don't do a two stop. This is a one stop race, and because it's a one stop race, you do have to do quite a bit more tire saving compared to those in GT 2 and 3, because you're going a bit faster, so you have to be even more precise with your inputs to try to make your tires last as long as possible. Now in this footage, this was actually my best run. I did do one run where I started on the racing soft tires, but because I was having massive skill issues, I was only able to make the racing soft tires last 8 laps. But in this run, I was able to make them last 11 laps, although I used those soft tires for the second stint. So actually, yeah, overall this run, I was able to perform a lot better. I think it's because I was able to get my headphones, and because I left that at work the other day, and I was able to listen to some ASMR while I was doing this run. But anyways, that's another story for another time. But with this, I was able to be overall more precise, especially on the racing soft tires, which definitely helped with making the racing soft tires last a bit longer. So with this run, I did 17 laps on the racing medium tires and 11 laps on the racing soft tires. And yeah, I think your goal is going to be to try to get the soft tires to last at least 10 laps, and that's at the bare minimum. If you can make them last 11 laps, then that's better. If you can somehow make the racing soft tires last 12 laps, then that's even better. But I think 11 laps is a sweet spot. 10 laps is the bare minimum. If you're only able to make your tires last 9 or less laps, then yeah, there's a bit of fixing that you're gonna have to do to try to make your tires last a bit longer. And yeah, as I was saying earlier, you really have to be precise with your driving, and especially because there are some corners like turns number 1, turn number 3 coming up, and I think it's turn number 6. That's the right-hander just after the start of sector number 2. It's really easy to get the car to slide around those turns, and those are the right turns, and it's your left tires that are wearing out faster. So if you're sliding around those specific turns, guess what? Your left tires are going to wear out even more. So yeah, you got to be a lot more careful with how you're driving. Now I'm gonna skip an over towards the start of lap number 9 because this was my best lap on the racing medium tires. I will show my best racing soft lap later on in the video. And with this one, I think this is where I eventually started to realize that I was kind of really getting in tune with how I'm driving in this race. Like, I was doing all right, and I think that's where I realized, okay, I'm doing pretty good. Let's keep it going, and just try to drive as smoothly as possible, and really just try not to overdrive the car. And that's especially going to be important when you're on the racing soft tires, because if you try to overdrive the car, if you push the car too much, you're just going to wear out your tires even faster. And just going to try to be nice and careful through here, nice and early back on the throttle. Just try to be as precise as possible, trying to get a nice clean drive through here. As in this run, I will be doing 17 laps on the racing medium tires. If I do a decent job driving the car around, then the tire wear shouldn't be too much of an issue. And I did see a purple sector, so things are going pretty good. 9 laps in, and I think in this lap I was able to get a 118.2. We'll see in a moment. I think, yeah, it's a 118.2. So that was my fastest lap on the racing medium tires. So let's go ahead and skip it over, and we're gonna go on over to the end of lap number 17. So I am losing a bit of time because my left tires are wearing out on me. So right here is where I know I definitely do have to go for my pit stop, and I'm gonna see if I could try to make those racing soft tires last 11 laps. At least for me, it's gonna be a bit of a tall order because I'm not the greatest when it comes to tire saving. So we'll just go ahead and hope for the best. And again, just try to slow down for this corner. I almost binned it right there, which would have been extremely frustrating. And luckily I was able to make it through just fine. So I used the racing medium tires as my first stint. Gonna switch on over to the racing soft tires, and here this is where I have to be a lot more careful about how I'm driving, because every little mistake I make, those racing soft tires are really going to feel it, and that's really going to add on to the tire wear. Just try to be nice and careful through here, and we're just going to go ahead and have a nice little drive for 11 laps. So let's go ahead and see how we're doing a couple laps in. And I'm actually gonna lie, because it was the lap after my out lap where I ended up getting my fastest lap for the racing soft tires. So here, I will be honest, I think I could have gone a little bit faster, because in my other runs I was able to get 117.7s, but in this one I was able to get a 117.8. So I did miss out on a 10th. I know I could go a bit faster, but I think the name of the game for me was just trying to have a consistent clean drive to make sure that the tires last the entire stint, which for this case it's 11 laps. So there's quite a bit of tire saving that I will have to do. You can even see that 2 laps in, we already have a bit of tire wear on the lower left hand corner of the screen. So again, tire saving is the name of the game. I hope you love to tire save, because if you don't, then you're not going to have a great time here. So just gonna try to brake before the 200 feet board. Nice and careful getting back on the throttle up to 3rd gear and go flat out through the final corner. And yeah, I think it was a 117.8. See in a moment. Okay, never mind. It was actually 117.6. I don't know what I'm talking about. Yeah, actually ended up doing better than I expected. So yeah, just gonna try to be nice and careful through here. Actually pleasantly surprised I was able to do a 17.6 under race pace. But yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and carry on forward. We'll go ahead and skip on over a couple more laps, and we're gonna skip on over towards the start of lap number 25, where there should be about 8 laps into my soft stint. And I do want to note, I did use the soft tires for my second stint, which means the car is a bit lighter as it has used up a bit more fuel, which means that the tire wear won't be as harsh compared to if I started with the racing soft tires, but I still want to point out that because I was able to drive a bit more carefully, I am having a bit of an easier time making the tires last longer. So when I was 8 laps in on the other runs, when I was driving a bit crap, the tires were just dying a death. But here, they're still holding up all right, which means that there is a chance I'll be able to make the racing soft tires last 11 laps, which is going to be the best case scenario for me, as that's what I'm trying to do. Trying to make the tires last 11 laps, as that's how long my stint will be. So yeah, you just got to be really careful with how you're driving, and I cannot emphasize this enough. If there's one thing, actually if there's 3 things that you want to take away from this video: 1, practice your pit entry; 2, make sure you use the racing soft and mini tires; and 3, tire save like hell. So we're going to go ahead and skip on over towards the end of the race, where the tire wear is definitely going to start to take effect now, as yeah, there's quite a bit of tire wear on those left tires, and I think it's here where I noticed that the tire wear was definitely not on my side. So I do have to be a bit more careful about how I'm driving, because the last thing I want to do is bin it this late into the race, as I don't even want to begin to count how much time I've spent trying to get a decent run with both GT2 and 3 leagues and GT1 league settings, because I kept binning it so many times. So I'm going to try to be nice and careful. And just look at the front left tire. That's quite a bit of tire wear. So yeah, I cannot emphasize enough. I know I've said it about a million times, but I will say it again. Take good care of your tires. Do a lot of tire saving, because your race kind of depends on it. You don't want it to stop. 2-stop is too slow. And we're going to go ahead and get ready to finish the race. So with this run, getting a 117.6 as my best time, I was able to finish this race in 37 minutes and 3 seconds. So luckily, I was able to do a much better run this time around, because I think in my first run in GT1 League settings, I did a 37:10. But yeah, this race was a heck of a lot better. I think part of it had to do with me listening to Yei Ugiri's ASMR streams, but who knows? But anyways, use the racing soft and medium tires, as they are mandatory tires that you have to use. Practice your pit stop entries and tire save like hell. But that's all for me. I gotta go work in the morning. Have a good night.